is dealing with equations of lines in the coordinate plane. And like I said, a lot of algebra refreshers. So like the first thing we're going to talk about is slope. Can anyone tell me what slope is? The amount a line falls or rises. Okay. What, like something over something. What do you think of when you think slope? Rise over run. Okay, you can think of it as rise over run. I don't know if did you ever learn it as delta y over delta x? Delta just means change. So the change in y over the change in x, which is essentially the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so all of those are saying the same thing, right? The change in x, the difference in, or change in y, sorry, difference in y over the difference in x. Okay, and slope always is represented with the letter M, not an S. Gentlemen, you with me? So let's say I give you a coordinate plane. And then I give you some points here. So like -1, 2. And 4, -2. Okay, if this is my line, I'm going to try to draw a line through those points. It doesn't usually happen, but use your imagination. It's not my worst ever. So if I said, what is the slope of that line? And we know it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Can you figure that out for me? What would you do? What's your y2? What's your y1?
Your y2 would be, well, it doesn't matter which is the 1 to 2.
Correct.
You just have to choose one.
Right, so let's say we call this x1, y1. Then this would be x2, y2, right? So you're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is -2 minus y1, which is 2. And then x2 minus x1 would be 4 minus a -1. So -2 minus 2, what do you get?
4.
Not 4. -2 minus 2. Really, guys? Come on. -2 minus 2. -4. Oh, I didn't hear him. Is that why no one was answering me? Because Jared already said it? My bad. Sorry, Jared. And then it's 4 minus a -1. What's minus a negative? Plus a positive. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So the slope of this line would be -4 over 5. Okay, that means we're going down 4 to the right 5. Make sense? Okay, let's just talk real quick about this line. Let's say I have a vertical line right here. Can you tell me the slope of a vertical line?
0.
No.
Oh, that's a horizontal line.
Horizontal line has a slope of 0. A vertical line, if we pick 2 points, so say we have 4, -2, and 4, 0, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 would be -2 over 0. What's the issue with dividing by 0? Can't do it. It is undefined, okay? So this would be undefined for a vertical, okay? Horizontal is 0. Vertical is undefined. Is that coming back to you?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just going to talk kind of the basics of slopes real quick. So I'm going to give you 4 different pictures, and you tell me what you would know about their slope. Let's say we have this blue line. versus this blue line versus this blue line versus this blue line. Okay, what could you tell me about the first slope? It's what? It's increasing. It's positive, right? So if it's on its way up, left to right, it's positive. So what's the second one? That's a negative slope. And then we just talked about this. What is a horizontal? That's a slope of 0. And what's a vertical? Undefined. Okay, so just pay attention to those things. If you are trying to find the slope of something and you see it looks like this, but your slope comes out as 2/3, you did something wrong, right? It should be a negative. So just make sure that you're putting stuff in the right places. Any questions on those 4? Okay, then there's 2 types of equations that we're going to talk about. And you know them both. You learned them both last year. So the first one is slope-intercept form. Is it all coming back? Hopefully. What does slope-intercept form look like? Do you remember? That's the one that's y equals mx plus b. What does m represent? The slope. What does b represent? That's the y-intercept. Okay, so that's slope-intercept form. And we'll get into more of that in just a minute. But the other form that we're going to talk about is point-slope form. I feel like this is the one that tends to give people a little more trouble, typically, just because there is some uniqueness to it. Does anyone remember what it looks like? Yeah.
I just remember it was the one where there was something confusing with negatives.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember what exactly.
Yes. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, right? So this is your slope. And then you have this x1, y1 is a coordinate that you're working with, right? So your x coordinate, your y coordinate. The thing that you're thinking of, Daniel, that's confusing about it is this formula is subtraction, right? Y minus a y1. So if your y1 is a negative number, your equation is actually going to say y plus that number, right? So if it's a -2, y minus a -2 is actually y plus 2. So it always looks opposite of what it's supposed to be because you're subtracting, okay? But you'll see as we go. Okay, so we're going to graph a few in these forms, and then we're also going to take information and put things into these forms. So starting with graphing, let's take a graph here. If you want graph paper for any of this, you're welcome to come grab some up there, or you can graph in Notability. So if I tell you to graph y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Okay, first of all, what form is this? This is slope-intercept. So you have a slope and you have a y-intercept. Which one do you plot first? The y-intercept, okay? So this is always going to come before the slope. So if my y-intercept is 1, where do I go for that?
1.
You go up 1, right? It's a y-intercept, and this is my y-axis, this is my x-axis. So we're asking, where do we hit y? Well, we hit y at 1, so you're going to plot a point right here, okay? Then it says we have a slope of 2/3. Where do you move for 2/3? Up 2 to the right 3. You always move to the right. Okay, if it's negative, you go down and to the right. If it's positive, you go up and to the right. I guess right is that way for you guys, huh? So for this one, we're going to go up 2 and then over 3, and that would put our point here. Please use a straight edge. My lines are terrible, I know, because I can't really use a straight edge on my iPad, but use a straight edge. Straight lines help a ton because when you have to find something further on in the graph, if you don't use a straight edge, it's not going to line up right, okay? So that would be the graph of y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Questions on that? Okay, how about, let's do this one. Y equals -1/4 x minus 2. If I'm going to graph that one, where do I go first? Down 2, 1, 2, and then where? Down 1 to the right 4. So you're going to go down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 over, God bless you, and then draw that line in. Okay, so this would be this graph, this would be this one. Questions on that? Still coming back? We remember? Okay, let's do another graph. This time, we're going to do a different form. So let's say we are graphing y minus 3 equals -2 times x plus 3. Okay, and here's where people tend to get confused and make little mistakes. What form is this? Point, slope. So you have a point and you have a slope. What's your slope? -2. You can think of that as -2 over 1 because that's how it's going to move. What's your point?
-3.
That's the one. Okay, so here's the deal. Your x is this guy. Your y is this guy, and it's opposite of what it looks like. So this is x plus 3. That means your x value is a -3 because we did x minus a -3, okay? Your y value is this one. It looks negative, but the formula says y minus your y value, which means your y value is positive. Be very careful with that, okay? That's where most of the mistakes get made on these problems. So do you plot your point or your slope first? The point first, you're going to go -3, +3, puts you right here. And then with a slope of -2, you're going to go down 2 to the right 1, which puts you here. Take a straight edge, draw that line in. Okay, how about this one? Y minus 2 equals -1/3 times x minus 4. What's the point? For 2, right? +4, +2. What's the slope? -1/3. So you're going to plot 4, 2. I totally switched this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then a slope of -1/3 is down 1, 1, 2, 3 to the right. So your line would look something like that if you actually went through the right thing. So that's this one. Red is this one. Okay, questions on those? This should all be review, right? This is all stuff you've seen before. Hopefully it's coming back quickly. Okay, third example. We're going to say write the equation of a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -5. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, so if we're going to write the equation of a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -5, what would that look like? Right, y equals 3x. So your slope always comes before your x, right? And then it's a negative 5. So you could say plus a negative, but most simplified, it would be 3x minus 5. Okay? What if I said write the equation of a line that goes through the point negative 1, 5 with a slope that is 2. Okay, so through negative 1, 5 with a slope of 2. What form are you putting it in? Point slope. So you have your point, you have your slope. So this would be your x1 and your y1. This would be your m. And we're going to plug that into point slope. So it would be what? Y plus or minus? Minus what? 5. Right. So you're going to do y minus your y value. So y minus 5. And then your slope is 2. And then x plus or minus? Plus because it's minus a negative, right? So if it's minus a negative 1, then it's actually going to become plus a positive. So your most simple version of that is y minus 5 equals 2 times x plus 1. Okay? Questions on that? Okay. What do I do with this? Let's say we have a graph and we have a point at 3, 5 and a point at negative 2, negative 1. Okay, let's say they ask for the equation of that line. What do you need to find? What form are you going to use? What do you got to find?
Well, it'd probably be easiest if you didn't do slope intercept because you can't exactly tell y-intercept right off the bat.
Right. So we don't know the y-intercept. We can say it looks like it's about 1.75 maybe, but we don't know, and you can't just guess, okay? So we're not going to do slope intercept, so we need to do point slope. What are we missing if we're doing point slope? The slope, but we can find a slope, right? So if I say this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2, we're going to start by finding the slope, which would be y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is a negative 1, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is negative 2. So if we simplify that, minus a negative is plus a positive, plus the positive, we get 6 over 5. Okay, that's our slope. Now if I want to put it into point slope form, you have options here, okay? How many points do we have? 2. You may pick either one. So pick the one that you like better. I'd pick the one that has the 2 positives over the 2 negatives, but that's just me. So you would do y minus your y value, which is 5, equals the slope times x minus your x value, and that would be your answer. Okay, you just leave it in point slope. What would the other answer be, the other option?
Y plus 1 plus 6, x plus 2.
6/5 times x plus 2. Yeah, so you could give either one of those, okay? They're both correct. I know they look like totally different lines, but they actually are the same line, okay? Questions on that? Okay, the last thing. Let's say we have coordinate plane, and there is this vertical line and this horizontal line, and the point where they meet is 2, 4. Okay. We know the slope of a horizontal is what? 0. Okay. The slope of a vertical is undefined. So you will never have a y equals mx plus b look with a vertical or a horizontal line. It just doesn't look the same because one, you're multiplying by 0, so the x goes away, and the other one, you can't multiply by it because it's undefined. Okay, so we got to figure out what these look like. Well, if you're thinking about, let's just think slope-intercept form. Okay, with the blue line, it would be y equals 0 times x, because our slope is 0, plus what? What's b right now? 4, right? My y-intercept is that 4. This right here is at 4. So y equals 0x plus 4. If we simplify that, what is that? Y equals 4. This goes away, and y equals 4. Okay, so a horizontal line is often going to be, is always going to be y equals some number. That is always for a horizontal line. Okay, so this is horizontal. That will always be y equals. Anyone know what a vertical line always is? It's x equals, right? Think about a vertical line. This point right here, all of these points, this would be 2, 0. This would be 2, 1. This would be 2, oh, I missed one, sorry. 2, 2, 2, 3, right? Your x value on that line is never changing. Your x value is always the same. So your equation for that is x will always equal 2. So for a vertical line, it will always be x equals something, okay? The way I try to tell people to remember which one's which is the letter y, if you flip it over, looks kind of like the letter h, right, for horizontal. So y equals is always going to be the horizontal. X equals is a bunch of v's all the way around, okay? That's the vertical. So x equals will always be a vertical line. Y equals will always be horizontal. Questions on that? All right. That is the lesson.